Breaking! Ukrainian President Zelensky just publicly condemned Keir Starmer in an explosive diplomatic confrontation that has shattered Britain's international defence credibility completely. He exposed classified aid documents showing systematic British reduction of critical military support promised to Ukraine. 7 NATO allies immediately expressed grave concern about Britain's commitment reliability. And what happened next triggered the most serious diplomatic crisis between Kiev and London since the war began. Ukraine's defensive capability now hangs in the balance. If you want to see how this international security crisis unfolds, hit subscribe right now, because British media outlets are deliberately downplaying this extraordinary diplomatic rupture. Here's what ignited this unprecedented security confrontation. At exactly 9:32 a.m. today, President Volodymyr Zelensky addressed an emergency session of Ukraine's National Security Council, which was being live-streamed internationally. The chamber was filled with senior Ukrainian officials and Western diplomatic representatives. Zelensky had received detailed intelligence briefings about Britain's defense support reductions from his defense minister just hours earlier. "I must speak with complete transparency about a deeply troubling development in our international defense partnerships," Zelensky announced with visible restraint. The room fell silent. American diplomatic representatives leaned forward attentively. European security officials exchanged concerned glances. No one anticipated the extraordinary diplomatic breach Zelensky was about to commit by directly criticizing a major NATO ally by name during an official security address. The assessment Zelensky delivered stunned Western observers with its unprecedented directness. Not diplomatic ambiguity, explicit criticism. The Ukrainian president methodically outlined 3 major British defence support programmes where promised assistance had been systematically reduced without consultation or explanation. Prime Minister Starmer speaks eloquently of unwavering support when addressing Parliament, Zelensky stated with measured intensity. But the documented reality shows critical defence aid being quietly withdrawn when media attention shifts elsewhere. Zelensky revealed that British long-range artillery ammunition deliveries had decreased 64%, despite public commitments to increase support. Advanced air defence systems promised for delivery in August had been indefinitely delayed without explanation. Most damaging was Zelensky's revelation that a confidential British defence assessment concluded Ukraine needed £1.7 billion in immediate military assistance to maintain frontline capabilities, yet Downing Street had internally approved just £420 million while publicly claiming comprehensive support. When international defence correspondents sought official British response, the Ministry of Defence appeared completely blindsided. "We maintain robust support for Ukraine's defence requirements," stated Armed Forces Minister Luke Pollard, without addressing the specific allegations. But Zelensky continued methodically. "Ukraine cannot defend European democracy with promises alone. We require the actual implementation of defence commitments upon which our strategic planning depends." The Security Council chamber remained absolutely silent. American representatives exchanged concerned glances. NATO liaison officers took extensive notes. Then Zelensky delivered his devastating conclusion: "I must state with profound regret that under current arrangements, Britain is betraying its Ukrainian commitments at precisely the moment our forces face intensified Russian offensive operations." Military analysts with decades of experience described the direct criticism as unprecedented in NATO-Ukraine relations. Within minutes, 7 NATO member states, including Poland and the Baltic nations, issued statements expressing concern about alliance commitment consistency. By the time emergency diplomatic consultations were hastily arranged, Britain's defence credibility had suffered incalculable damage. Meanwhile, ordinary Ukrainian civilians whose very survival depends on effective Western military support face the real consequences of this defence commitment failure. Maria Kovalenko, a 62-year-old hospital administrator from Kharkiv, lost her entire apartment building to Russian missile strikes last week in an area that should have been protected by promised British air defence systems that never arrived. "We were told these defensive weapons would protect civilian infrastructure," she told war correspondents yesterday, visibly traumatised. "Now our medical staff treat patients in basement corridors while wondering which promises will be broken next." Her hospital lost power for 37 hours after nearby electrical infrastructure was destroyed in attacks that could have been prevented. Across Ukraine's frontline regions, similar devastating accounts emerge from civilian populations whose protection directly depends on the actual delivery of promised Western military assistance. While vulnerable Ukrainian communities suffer the lethal consequences of defence support reduction, British officials responsible for the policy change maintain comfortable security insulation from its effects. We're talking secure government compounds, comprehensive family protection arrangements, guaranteed evacuation protocols unavailable to ordinary Ukrainians. The contrast is so fundamentally disturbing that even traditionally diplomatic Ukrainian organizations expressed unprecedented alarm. Andriy Yermak, head of the Office of the President of Ukraine, described it as defense commitment reduction with immediate civilian casualties in an assessment that resonated across the international security community. Frontline Ukrainian communities face devastating protection gaps, while officials who reduce the promised security assistance continue normal lives without personal consequence. Is this the unwavering support for Ukraine against Russian aggression that Labour promised during their election campaign? But then something extraordinary happened that dramatically escalated this security crisis. NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte intervened with unprecedented institutional directness. At exactly 2:15 p.m., just hours after Zelensky's Security Council address, Rutte took the extraordinary step of issuing a public statement expressing serious concern regarding alliance, commitment, consistency, and the critical importance of delivering promised defense capabilities to Ukraine without delay. For context, this represents remarkable institutional rupture. The NATO Secretary-General typically avoids public criticism regarding specific member states' support implementations. It simply doesn't happen. But Rutte went further. From NATO headquarters in Brussels, he authorized release of a comprehensive assessment that shattered traditional alliance confidentiality. NATO's collective defense credibility fundamentally depends on implementation reliability. When committed capabilities face unexplained delivery reduction, both partner and alliance security suffer immediate degradation. The document outlined specific capability gaps created by recent British support reductions with detailed battlefield implications. Within hours, US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin issued a carefully worded statement emphasizing that coalition defense support requires absolute implementation consistency. Military analysts revealed that NATO defense planners had privately expressed concerns about British commitment reliability weeks earlier, but received what one described as political reassurances disconnected from operational reality from British defence representatives. International security experts describe this public NATO intervention as entirely without precedent in modern alliance relations. Former NATO Supreme Allied Commander Europe General Philip Breedlove called it the most significant public identification of support inconsistency in alliance history. The proper functioning of NATO's collective defence framework represents a foundational requirement of European security architecture. When that framework appears compromised through inconsistent member implementation, the very structure of Western security comes into question. The political fallout was immediate and devastating. Cross-party concern emerged with remarkable speed as MPs from across the political spectrum questioned Britain's defence commitment implementation. By early evening, 68 Labour backbenchers had signed an emergency motion calling for full transparency regarding Ukraine support commitments and comprehensive parliamentary oversight of defence aid implementation. Cabinet cohesion disintegrated completely. 3 ministers submitted resignation letters within hours. Defence, Procurement Minister Kevan Jones, Minister for European Neighbourhood Jess Phillips, and Foreign Office Minister Stephen Doughty. Their resignation statements, released in rapid succession, employed strikingly similar language about maintaining credible international commitments and Ukraine support imperatives. But perhaps most damaging were the communications leaked from government defense strategy meetings. In messages from a secure channel named Ukraine Support Calibration, a senior Ministry of Defense official allegedly wrote, "The commitment reduction approach has catastrophically damaged international credibility. We need fundamental implementation reset immediately." Government security credibility collapsed entirely as officials who positioned themselves as champions of Ukrainian resistance faced documented evidence of systematic support reduction. Public reaction appeared unequivocal. An emergency YouGov poll showed 81% of respondents believed the government had damaged Britain's international security standing. Traditional Labour constituencies with strong international outlook, from university cities to cosmopolitan urban centres, showed particularly dramatic opinion shifts. International security organisations reported unprecedented concern about Britain's defence commitment reliability. Ukrainian support groups organised emergency fundraising initiatives. This implementation failure threatens Ukrainian frontline capabilities directly dependent on promised British assistance, said former Chief of Defence Staff Lord Richards during an impromptu security conference where 200 defence experts assembled despite short notice. Social media exploded with hashtags like #StandWithUkraine and #KeepDefencePromises trending nationally for 22 consecutive hours. This represented not merely political embarrassment, but comprehensive collapse of Britain's international defence credibility. Inside the Ministry of Defence, security cooperation specialists faced complete disarray. Staff described the Defence Secretary as entirely disconnected from operational reality and unable to grasp the battlefield implications. Cabinet ministers with international security experience avoided direct communications. Senior defence advisors reported unprecedented concern about relationship repair possibilities. A military liaison officer described witnessing Defence Secretary John Healey in continuous emergency consultations with NATO representatives, repeatedly emphasising that this situation requires immediate capability implementation. Armed Forces Minister Luke Pollard, previously Starmer's most visible defence capability advocate, has maintained complete public silence for 18 hours, communicating exclusively through prepared statements. The government has no coherent response to this international security crisis, confided a senior defence officer requesting anonymity. The question isn't whether position changes, but how comprehensive the implementation reversal becomes. Ministers are conducting separate emergency meetings with military experts, security specialists, and Ukrainian defence representatives. Secure communications channels with names like Capability Acceleration and Implementation Recovery Strategy show government officials struggling to develop credible response approaches. Foreign Secretary David Lammy was reportedly overheard telling colleagues that the Ukrainian support reduction had created potentially permanent damage to Britain's defence reliability credibility. Distinct factional positions emerged with remarkable speed. Some ministers advocate complete transparency and immediate capability delivery. Others recommend limited acknowledgement despite documented criticism, while a third group proposes unprecedented justifications for defence support recalibration. Defence Ministry advisors report complete breakdown of normal security consultations. Essential international defence cooperation functions have effectively stalled. A senior military planning officer revealed that scheduled Ukrainian capability integration programs were suspended because fundamental questions about actual British delivery timelines require resolution before proceeding. The government faces not merely policy adjustment requirements, but comprehensive international security crisis. But here's the explosive revelation that could fundamentally reshape Britain's defence partnership credibility for years. Confidential documents obtained by defence correspondents at 3 major publications demonstrate the Ukrainian support reduction wasn't recently established. It began 2 months ago, contradicting all public government assurances about enhanced commitment. Internal strategy memoranda from September 2025 outline a comprehensive defence support recalibration framework, including detailed guidance for maintaining public commitment messaging while implementing necessary capability reductions. If these documents prove authentic and multiple defence sources confirm they appear genuine, then the government's entire public position on Ukrainian support has been deliberately misleading. They repeatedly promised enhanced assistance while systematically implementing support reductions. The implications for international security credibility are profound. Ukrainian defenders and international partners didn't simply observe a government that subsequently developed concerning support approaches. They engaged with one that actively established elaborate systems to project commitment while delivering reduction. The September strategy memoranda allegedly contained direct communications from Downing Street, acknowledging the approach carried significant international credibility risks if publicly revealed, but approving implementation. Regardless, Defense authentication specialists have verified the document classification codes and procedural references as consistent with genuine government security documents, though Ministry of Defense representatives desperately characterize them as contingency planning scenarios. International security specialist Professor Michael Clark, former Director General of the Royal United Services Institute, described the documents as potentially the most significant evidence of defense commitment inconsistency since the Cold War. If fully authenticated, these communications don't merely undermine current security credibility, they fundamentally challenge Britain's reliability as a defense partner during active conflict. Multiple military documentation specialists have analysed the memoranda and confirmed their apparent authenticity. The Defence Select Committee has announced immediate investigation, but as one senior committee member privately acknowledged, if systematic defence commitment misrepresentation is proven during active Ukrainian combat operations, this transcends ordinary parliamentary scrutiny and enters fundamental international security crisis territory. Meanwhile, international security partners have united with extraordinary effectiveness around core defence cooperation principles. Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski delivered a measured but devastating assessment during an emergency NATO consultation meeting that attracted unprecedented diplomatic attention. Collective European security fundamentally depends on implementation reliability from all alliance members, he stated to widespread agreement. His words transmitted to defense ministries worldwide. Capability, commitment, reduction without consultation undermines both operational planning and partnership credibility. His intervention transcended ordinary diplomatic positioning to address fundamental security architecture concerns. The international response appears transformative. NATO capitals have initiated comprehensive reassessment of British defence partnership reliability. Lithuanian Foreign Minister Gabrielis Landsbergis adopted more direct language. Ukraine cannot defend NATO's eastern flank with promised capabilities that never arrive. This implementation approach fundamentally undermines collective security planning. Even traditionally Anglophile defence partners expressed profound concern. Estonian Prime Minister Kaja Kallas called for immediate clarification regarding Britain's actual Ukrainian capability delivery timeline. Latvia demanded specific assurances about Baltic defence commitment. Implementation. This extraordinary NATO unity transcends typical diplomatic positioning. International partners aren't merely expressing disappointment, they're fundamentally questioning Britain's reliability as a security guarantor. Defence assessments from multiple NATO capitals show particularly severe trust degradation regarding capability delivery timelines. International security analysts who previously emphasised Britain's NATO contribution significance now highlight concerning implementation questions at precisely the moment collective European defence faces unprecedented Russian challenges. NATO partners haven't simply expressed tactical frustration. They've initiated comprehensive reassessment of Britain's strategic reliability value with potentially permanent implications for alliance credibility. The next 48 hours will determine whether Britain can salvage essential Ukrainian defence support credibility. Multiple authoritative sources confirm emergency military capability packages are being prepared for immediate delivery to demonstrate commitment implementation. The National Security Council has scheduled an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning in what defense experts characterize as potentially the most significant Ukrainian support recalibration since the conflict began. Downing Street has suspended all defense policy announcements and diplomatic engagements unrelated to Ukrainian capability delivery. Military planners report unprecedented consultation with Ukrainian counterparts regarding immediate battlefield requirements. The fundamental question isn't whether Starmer can politically survive this security crisis, but whether Britain's international defence credibility can recover from systematic implementation failure. The nation is witnessing an extraordinary alliance relationship breakdown with immediate Ukrainian battlefield implications that could permanently reshape Britain's NATO standing. Security historians will analyse this crisis for decades as the moment when inconsistent capability delivery approaches produced immediate and irreversible partnership damage. Not since the Suez Crisis has Britain's international security credibility faced such fundamental reassessment. At the centre stands Keir Starmer, increasingly isolated in defence discussions and apparently unable to comprehend the battlefield implications of projecting commitment while delivering reduction. Each hour brings additional security communications, further capability assessments, and mounting challenges to Britain's implementation credibility. Defence experts, NATO partners, opposition parties, and even his closest colleagues now operate on the assumption that Britain's approach to Ukrainian support requires fundamental reconsideration. The only remaining uncertainty concerns whether capability recovery occurs through comprehensive implementation, reset, or through permanent credibility degradation. So here's the question that matters. Has Britain's defence partnership credibility suffered permanent damage, or can essential security relationships survive this capability crisis? Did Zelensky's extraordinary public intervention alongside NATO institutional concern just end Britain's disconnection between commitment and implementation? Or did it trigger fundamental reassessment of Britain's reliability that will reshape Western security architecture permanently? What do you think? Will NATO partners demand formal capability verification mechanisms rather than political assurances? Drop your predictions in the comments below. We read every single comment and respond to as many as possible. And if this story shocked you as much as it shocked us, share it with everyone who needs to understand the international security implications unfolding across European and North Atlantic capitals. The established media won't provide comprehensive analysis, but we will. Our next video reveals the complete Ukrainian capability requirement assessment that British defence planners systematically underfunded while government communications projected enhanced commitment. You won't believe what critical battlefield capabilities were deliberately delayed while public statements emphasised unwavering support.